This tides them over on the weekend. At our school, they get 2 meals a day. They get free breakfast for all kids, and then 77% of our kids get free underneath lunch.
Hey guys, I'm Levi Swartout. I'm the student body president here at Cactus High School. We just wanted to give you a taste of our school spirit by giving you a big cactus-style welcome.
This is about you, the community, coming together and seeing what we do.
Allowing us to share our school with you. We hope that as you leave, you are feeling like you are a special part of our community of learners.
I'm Jason Reynolds, and I'm the Deputy Superintendent for the Peoria Unified School District. There's been a lot of talk over the last few years about school finance, and so a school district like ours have put together videos to help our communities better understand how schools are funded and where the money goes. They've used all kinds of creative approaches for these videos, and as a team, we sat down and talked about how we might be able to better capture your attention. We talked about doing animation.
Funds in the maintenance and operation bucket pay for the day-to-day operation of our schools. Huh?
But you're adults, not kids, and the video should appeal to your sensibilities. What about a musical?
5, 6, 7, 8.
But we're educators, not entertainers. So let's dispense with the entertainment and commence with your school finance education. Let's begin. Arizona schools receive their funding from local property owners, the state of Arizona, and the federal government. Local and state sources provide about 90% of the funding, and the remainder comes from the federal government. But unlike your own budget, the use of those funds is restricted by law on how the funds can be spent. Before the district can use the funding, it is split into two separate buckets. Approximately 96% of the funds from local taxpayers and the state are placed into the maintenance and operations bucket, with the remaining 4% going into the capital bucket. The 4% of the budget in the capital bucket pays for durable items that are owned or used by the school for many years, like furniture, buses, textbooks, and technology. Funds in the maintenance and operation bucket pay for the day-to-day operation of our schools, including salaries, transportation, utilities, and general supplies like paper. All districts are required to have a balanced budget and cannot spend more than is provided in the two buckets. If the money in either of the two buckets is not enough to meet the needs of our students, the district can ask the local community to pass an override or bond to increase the available funds. Overrides and bonds are different, and the funds they generate add to the different buckets. Overrides provide additional funds for the maintenance and operations bucket, and thanks to our community, a 13% override passed in November of 2015, which allowed us to bring back free all-day kindergarten and to provide salary increases for our staff, as well as support invaluable resources such as assistant principals, nurses, arts education, reading programs, gifted education, athletics, and extracurricular activities. Without the current override, the district's maintenance and operation budget would shrink by more than $27 million. This override will maintain funding for the staff and programs supported by the current override and allow the district to fund new student and staff safety initiatives, such as hiring new counselors and intervention specialists, as well as providing safety-related training to staff and competitive compensation for our teachers. If approved, the override will result in an estimated annual tax rate of $1.74 per $100 of assessed valuation for residential property owners. This represents about a $2 to $6 increase per month over the current override for homeowners in our district. Does school finance make more sense to you now? I hope it does. But if you have more questions about our budget or our override, please visit our website at peoriaunified.org/bonds and overrides or call us at 623-486-6100.
Long Dawn, we'll just do voice votes. Yeah. We'll just keep going. We'll improvise. It's all recorded anyway. Okay. Bear with us while we have tech issues and being worked through this, but we're going to go ahead and start the board agenda, and then board members will do voice votes if need be. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us and your patience. Moving forward, we are exiting executive session. I do need a motion to reconvene regular board session.
I move that we convene regular board session.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by Mr. Sandoval. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 4 and 1 absent. Ms. Stone will not be able to make it with us this evening. We're going to go ahead and proceed with a moment of silence this evening as we stand in pause. We want to take a moment and think of one of our Peoria Unified family members, Mr. Brent Cooper, who passed away. Please stand, and I will head and read the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to 3.1, governing board members, are there any agenda items that you would like to rearrange? 4.1, staff recognitions. Miss Airy, Miss Linda Pellis-Thompson, our superintendent.
Thank you, Mrs. Sejas Martinez. It's been a busy week, as it always is. This week is Bus Safety Week, and so we want to take the time to thank those in transportation who have just keep our children safe to and from school, and they're the first face that our children see every day, so, and the last one they sometimes see. So thank you, transportation. Saturday was Career and College Day, held by our CTE department. My understanding is that our students and parents had the opportunity to learn more about our award-winning CTE programs. Thank you, as always, Dr. Beltram, for all your work. And on Monday, the benefits department and your team, thank you, Dr. Davidson, we had our benefits, our annual health harvest fair, and it was a wellness fair. It took place at Centennial High School. Thank you, Centennial, for your work, and it provided an opportunity for our members to learn more about their health and wellness and the options that they have. So delighted, thank you. It was a great week.
Thank you. Going on to board recognitions, Miss Underhill.
Okay, so I wanted to kind of give a shout out to the Future Teachers Academy. I was invited to attend the Future Teachers Academy at Sunrise Mountain High School last week by Mrs. V. Davis, and I was able to go, and they asked me to speak about the governing board and the role in the school district, and I thought that was fabulous because in all my pre-service as a as student teacher, etc., I don't think I ever learned about what the governing board role is. So I thought that was fantastic that our high school students are getting an opportunity to do that. I just wanted to, commend our district for providing that opportunity. I do think it's really helping us to develop a pipeline of, great teachers early on. And it's also providing a service to our teachers because those students do get to go through CTE and earn internship credit as kind of student teachers within our district. So it's fantastic. On that same note, I wanted to say that a student reached out to me since the last time I was here, from ASU Mary Lou Fulton College, who actually I met at the SEATS event, and he wanted to know how he could help our district because he's pursuing a career in teaching. So we're doing a good job of creating that pipeline, and I appreciate our teachers and our staff because it's you guys who are the role models. So thank you very much.
Ms. Pingarelli?
Well, I also wanted to say congratulations to Dr. Beltram for the Career and College Day on last Saturday. I am the board member on the CTE. Unfortunately, I was not able to make it, so I apologize profusely. But I heard that you had record attendance, so I will mark it on the calendar for next time. Thank you very much. And then I also wanted to say thank you very much to our superintendent and Dr. Davidson for coming out to GCU. They were able to, they gave a presentation to new prospective educators, and it sounds like it was pretty eventful. You had several reach out to you, so those kind of connections really make a difference in bringing, teachers have a wide choice, and we want to have Peoria be their first choice, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Sandoval.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Palace Thompson, the bus safety week was one of my recognitions, so I echo those comments. Thank you to all those individuals who are, our students, one of their, first, smiling faces that they see in caring adults, both in the morning and the evening. So thank you to all those individuals. I also like to really congratulate Kellis Unified Choir Program. I know they were invited to it's to perform on stage with Special Olympics Global Ambassador Vanessa Williams at her November 8th performance at the Arizona Music Festival. So shout out to Miss Rebecca Goodnight Bell, as well as Mr. Jason Cowles, for their continuing to inspire those students there at Kellis and those choir students. So last but not least, again, when I am on social media and, I follow, all the sites and all the great things that go on throughout our district, and what I've seen as of late is just a lot of acts of human kindness, from our students specifically. Park Ridge Elementary, I know the kids did a street cleanup. But one that I really want to highlight is, Centennial High School. Their marching band, how they went out, to one of their fellow band members who is, battling leukemia, and they brought the band to him and went to his home. So it continues to just really affirm that, our future is in a great place. When we look at our students here that go through our walls. So I want to thank certainly the teachers and staff, for modeling, that level of character, with all of our students. And thank the students, for understanding that every day we are here to enrich the lives of others. So congratulations to all those individuals, and that's what I have for today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sandoval. For myself, I would like to take some time to acknowledge a few items. The CTE was definitely one of my highlights. As you're aware, I was a teacher and started my time at Country Meadows, and it is definitely full circle when you see your second grader stand as a junior in a junior ROTC uniform who was an ESL student who took a couple years to become proficient, but is now confident and proud to wear that uniform and know that he's going to serve our country as a result of a CTE program and a partnership. So thank you. It was definitely my highlight of this time period, and it brought tears to my eyes. So to see those programs have results like that, thank you. Alas, I had the opportunity to attend a conference with Dr. Reynolds, our deputy superintendent, and our new principal at Copperwood Elementary School, Miss Arias. We divided and conquered, and what the ALAS conference was about is equity. And in a sense, we looked at how do we close the achievement gap. And there was one thing, governing board, I wanted to highlight that was an echoing theme, and Dr. Reynolds and I and Ms. Arias took some time to look at that, is finances at the site level. Are our principals equipped to speak to where every dollar is going to. And that is so important when we discuss equity and closing the achievement gap. So I look forward to continuing that conversation, and governing board, you will receive the resources that we have. We'll try to get them uploaded through board docs so that can drive our goals going forward. The last thing that I want to highlight was definitely the SEATS event. Mr. Sandoval, thank you for taking some time and joining us. SEATS stands for Students Engaging with Administrators, Teachers, and Staff. And they were a mix of students. Administrators were there hosting roundtable conversations, and our students are definitely game changers. They right away identified you need balance. You can't always say yes to everything because you'll go off kilter. And in those conversations, what I heard in every single roundtable was we feel safe. And as a district, we have been focused for the past year really defining social and emotional, our facilities, safety, and Mr. Dogood stepped up and transitioned and continued that focus on student safety and staff safety, which they highlighted the importance of relationships. So kudos to Cactus High School for hosting us. Our students are in a great position, and we are driving student safety as a priority along with staff. So thank you again for attending. And we will continue to move forward.
Yeah, you know,
Mr. Sandoval.
I apologize. There's one other, I guess, recognition I want to really give a shout out. This is something that I think falls, within the umbrella of CTE. I was able to be part of the PSBN game day that took place last week, and when you look at the students and just their professionalism and the confidence that they exude, again, that's a, kudos, again, to our teachers and staff who influence that. But I think when we talk about our strategic plan and community connectedness, and you take a look at, the number 2 search engine that's out there, which is YouTube, PSBN and its videos, it's relevant, and it's a great way to really showcase all the great things that go on here in the Peoria Unified School District. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Thank you.
That's a great point. And governing board members, if you can't attend to some of those meetings, you can watch them. Not that I watch them at work, but you can watch them live as they do show. All right, moving on, public comment. I don't see any green slips, so we will move forward. Number 6, consent agenda. Governing board, are there any items you would like to pull? Nope. I don't have any as well, so I will need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second that. Sorry. We have a motion by Mr. Sandoval and a second by myself to approve the consent agenda. Motion passes unanimously, 4 and 1 absent. Moving on to 8.1, discussion consideration of the 2018-2019 annual financial reports. Am I in the wrong one? 10.1. You know what I have? Thank you. I have the wrong copy. Thank you. 10.1, update on annual bond and override program. I'm following the hard copy that was put on my desk. Thank you.
Well, good evening, President Ceja Martinez, members of the governing board, Mrs. Palace Thompson, and members of the community. I would also be very happy to talk about our AFR again this evening, but we are here tonight to present our annual maintenance and operations override and bond program update. Tonight, I will review the annual reporting requirements related to the district's current override and bond programs and fiscal 2019 expenditures in each program. The annual report that I'm presenting tonight is part of the perspective of stewardship of community resources within the district's strategic plan. School districts are required by statute to provide an annual update on maintenance and operations overrides and bond program expenditures and remaining available funds at a public meeting each year between the dates of September 1st and October 31st. Tonight's presentation meets this requirement. Maintenance and operations expenditures are where most of the day-to-day expenditures for the district take place. Specifically, this is salaries and employee benefits, supplies, utilities, transportation, and other operational expenditures not of a capital nature. Maintenance and operations funds cannot be used to build a new school or to renovate or repair buildings or to install or repair infrastructure, for example. Arizona Revised Statutes and the legislature allows a public school district to ask its community to approve an annual M&O budget increase through an override election to support positions and programs that may not be possible utilizing the funding that is received each year from the state of Arizona. Arizona Revised Statutes allow a maintenance and operations override to exceed the maintenance and operations budget up to 15% of the revenue control limit. The Peoria Unified School District currently has a 13% M&O override in place, which is supported through secondary property taxes within the district. The Peoria Unified School District's current 13% maintenance and operations override was approved by our community in November of 2015. Once approved by the voters, an M&O override is in place for 7 years. If not renewed by the community, the original override that's in place will sunset in years 6 and 7 and be fully eliminated in year 8. The current 13% M&O override funds assistant principals, nurses, and healthcare providers, as well as athletics, extracurricular activities, PE, art, band, and choir classes, as well as gifted and reading programs. It also supports maintaining our class size and provides funding for all-day K for our families within the community. And when I say all-day K, that's all-day kindergarten, as well as compensation for all of our staff. In fiscal year 2019, the Maintenance and Operations Override provided $26.3 million of additional M&O funding for positions and programs. With voter approval, public school districts may issue bonds, which are purchased by investors to fund projects that have a useful life that's greater than 5 years. Project examples include building improvements, like heating and ventilation and air conditioning, as well as roofing, lighting projects, technology, purchasing school buses, and built-in equipment. Once issued, bonds are repaid over a set period of time. In November of 2012, Peoria Unified's community approved $180 million of bond authorization for the district for district-wide elementary and high school renovations, student transportation and vehicle purchases, staff and student technology purchases, as well as district facility renovations. The bond authorization is also funded through secondary property taxes from residential and commercial property within the boundaries of the Peoria Unified School District, and the district does provide an update each year as we set our budget related to our primary and our secondary tax rate when we adopt our budget in July of each year. In fiscal year 2019, the bond program related expenditures totaled $14.1 million. A bond authorization is in place for 10 years, and bond proceeds from a bond sale need to be expended within 3 years of the sale date. There has been one bond sale in fiscal 2019, which occurred in July of 2018, that used $17.4 million of bond authorization. And in July of 2019, just a few months ago, we had our last bond sale in the 2012 bond authorization, fully utilizing the remaining authorization that was approved by the voters. At this time, there are no additional bond sales on the horizon. We, at this point, have fully sold the 2012 authorization from our community. The district is required to track expenditures by bond pamphlet category, and in fiscal 2019, $7.9 million was expended for elementary school renovations, $3.2 million for high school renovations, $2 million for the purchase of buses and student transportation vehicles, $687,000 for technology expenditures, and $271,000 on administrative facilities repair and maintenance projects, for a total of $14,095,752 in expenditures for the fiscal year. For fiscal year 2019, District Elementary School expenditures included heating and air conditioning projects, as well as roofing and fencing projects, flooring projects, and built-in technology installation, including fire alarm replacements. At the high schools in fiscal year 2019, bond projects included heating and air conditioning, as well as fencing and flooring projects, including athletic, main, and practice gym flooring projects at Centennial and Liberty High Schools. Additional fiscal year 2019 bond expenditures included technology purchases and student transportation vehicles. I do need to note at this time that in fiscal year 2019, only district-wide technology upgrades were purchased. The additional comment on this slide is related to prior years. Student staff devices and printers were purchased prior to fiscal 2019 and should not have been included as a highlight on this particular slide. Preliminary projects for the next year in the fiscal 2012 bond program, which is our current year fiscal 2020 and fiscal year 2021, are for security and safety priority projects, as well as roofing, fire alarm control panels, air conditioning and heating, energy management systems, parking lot renovations, and the purchase of student transportation vehicles. This concludes the annual maintenance and operations override and bond program presentation. At this time, I am available to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Myers. Governing Board, any questions or comments?
I just have a quick question. So as far as when we assess the facilities and, kind of figure out our priorities and that kind of thing, what is our schedule for doing that?
Thank you, Mrs. Underhill and Mrs. Ceja Martinez, members of the Governing Board. After November 2018, last year, when we didn't pass the bond authorization that was on the ballot, we started to meet regularly to look at priority projects. And you may recall in January of 2019 at the Governing Board retreat, we did highlight some of those priority areas of focus with, again, safety initiatives being of utmost importance. And so we have some fairly finite remaining bond dollars now, and so we are being very careful how we expend those dollars. We've also started the district-wide facility utilization and capacity study, which will help us prioritize needs related to our remaining bond dollars, as well as needs for a future bond authorization.
That's great. And so within that process, they prioritize, and I'm assuming there's criteria like age and, enrollment and all those types of things. Is that developed through that process?
That is part of the scope of work within the facility utilization study that is underway and will be published in early 2020.
Okay, great. And then just one last thing. I noticed, and maybe it does fit within one of those categories, but I don't see anything around like playground improvements. Is that fit within one of those categories? Because I know that that's something that, and shade structures, et cetera, that we often are in need of.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Underhill. Mrs. Ceja Martinez, members of the Governing Board. You'll note that we had some categories that we had on the slides that include land improvement, and I believe there was an asterisk at the bottom of the slide that highlighted that land improvements include shade structures, playground equipment, and similar installations.
Great. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Ms. Meyer, thank you again. So when we take a look at, the remaining balances, if you will, the bond dollars, and, when we first went out, we had kind of a listing of priorities. And I know you stated we're having to adapt a little bit, but based on those priorities and those that we have met, of those that are left over, can you talk a little bit about those adjustments that we had to make? Have any of those original commitments been moved, due to budget, and something else came in due to, whatever factor, I guess, motivated, that to take place? So I guess my overall question is, can you just talk about those priorities, those that may have shifted based on balances, and priorities that may have come up?
Mr. Sandoval, Mrs. Ceja Martinez, members of the governing board, over the years, starting with 2013 as the first year of project expenditures through June 30th of 2019, there were projects based on the categories approved by the voters, many of which were identified many years ago when there was actually a facility utilization and needs study that I believe was initiated in 2011, 2012. I wasn't here at the time, but that's my understanding. And that report, which was published, actually was the basis for the categories and some of the projects that were included in the 2012 program. So as part of the current facility utilization and capacity study that's underway, we were actually looking at the projects that have been completed under the 2012 program, as well as needs district-wide from a repair and a capital improvement perspective to determine what was covered, still has the ability to be covered in the current bond, as well as what would be required under a new bond authorization.
Gotcha, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I just have one ask as we continue to move forward, and you mentioned the facilities utilization 2020 update. Is provide a clear timeline for the board as well as the staff as we move forward on what the next options are or the process.
Thank you. We will do that.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 10.2, presentation and discussion regarding Peoria Unified School District's performance pay system. Dr. Davidson.
All right. Good evening, President Ceja Martinez, members of the board, Ms. Powles Thompson, and community. Tonight, thank you for giving me an opportunity to come before you and present what we see as our performance pay plans for both certified staff, our administrative team as well at the site level and at the district level. So I wanted just to start off by sharing a little bit of information here tonight. And basically, those are the three groups we're going to talk about, highlighting some next steps we have for our team as we move forward into the 2021 school year, and then, of course, hopefully getting to a motion later on in the evening. The pot of money, essentially, I'm going to be speaking of tonight, especially for our certified staff members, is Fund 12. And that comes from the Classroom Site Fund, and that fund is specifically designed for performance pay, and we use that for our certain educators. As you see there, the last bullet on that slide is just to also remind you that we do have educators here in the Peoria Unified District who are also do receive performance pay, but we do use a different pot of money, essentially, to support them, and we'll continue to do so with your approval tonight. So as we look at the plans themselves, on this particular slide, as we look at our certified plan, this is a plan that I've asked you to look at that does mirror that from 14 to 15. And the exciting piece there is that second bullet, where we had 88% of our eligible staff who returned actually respond with an 88% approval rate. It was just funny how those statistics worked. But I want to highlight our teachers out there in our schools as well as our principals, because I did have to lean heavily on them to help me with reminders to get that data set brought back in. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. But with our certified teacher plan, it remains the same, where 33% of performance pay is tied to our teachers' performance classification label that they receive. 50% is dedicated due to our district graduation rate, and that 17% is dependent upon the student learning objective or the outcome of that objective that our teachers and staff are working alongside their students with, okay? And feel free, as always, if you have questions as I'm speaking, feel free to shout out and I'll respond. Otherwise, we can wait till the end. As we move forward and look at the site-based administrator, if you recall, this plan was put into place last year and remains the same as well, mirroring that of the teacher, where we have our site-based administrators who also receive an effectiveness label. 33% of their performance pay is based on the performance classification, 50% for graduation rate, and also our school leaders are working with their staffs to establish learning goals as well. So that's where that 17% ties in there. Very similar plan for our district administrators. As you can see, the same thing, performance class. I feel like I'm speaking over and over again the same amount of information, but please note it is very much the same, and we did that with purpose to mirror the teacher plan all the way through the administrative plan. Next steps, I think some very important steps here. First and foremost, with your approval tonight, if that's how it plays out, certainly we'll want to push that information out to our team to let them know really what they're working towards this school year. we'll implement those plans based on our conversation tonight. We have begun the process for reviewing all of our evaluation tools, both administrative, all through certified, and our classified teams. So in those conversations, we're going to be speaking about performance pay and what some possible changes may or may not be. I know our board has recommended some things for us to look at, and certainly I want to let you know those haven't fallen on deaf ears, so we'll be looking at that this fall and bringing you the information in the spring as we move forward. And lastly, I stand here for questions before I have this slide here, which is to ask you to make a certain motion. So I'll stand for any questions you may have or see if I can clarify anything for you.
Mr. Sandoval.
Dr. Davidson, thank you, and thank you, for having those conversations to understand how this particular, I guess, compensation line item, can, taking a look at the other employee groups that we have, and how we can be inclusive and realize some equity there. So thank you for that. But when you take a look at the metric, I think it was 88%. Of the 88% that responded had an 88% approval rate, right? The 12%, what do we know about how those responses looked like? And I would assume that we would take some of that information and to have how that may inform how we adapt the compensation model or the performance pay in subsequent years.
Great question, Mr. Sandoval. Thank you. President Ceja Martinez, members of the board. I actually have that data with me, and it's really not all that different compared to the items that were given to us last year by our employee group. I believe in some cases, some of our employees may simply not be fully educated on the classroom site fund and what the law requires of a performance pay plan. So some comments simply said, hey, we disagree with the process, just give us the money. That is a common thread that often comes out. Some comments were made about the student learning objective, and I think whether it's jumping through a hoop or is it a rigorous process that leads to student achievement, right? So we had some of those comments were in there. Some people talked about the classifications, the performance classifications, and maybe should we consider giving more performance pay money to those that are seen as highly effective versus effective. So we had some of those comments, Mr. Sandoval, that will bring also title schools versus non-title schools. If you're an educator in a different type of environment, should performance pay be based on the setting in which you work, right? So those are some comments that came through. Not just the 12% of people that disapproved of it, but I think overall those are some themes that were captured.
Gotcha. Now, thank you for that, and thank you for acknowledging, again, that every site has a story, right? And you talked about the Title I sites, and leveraging that information to adapt, our performance pay line item, if you will, or revenue channel. It's, as we move forward, right, it is always about continuous improvement and understanding, how our district continues to shift, even in the face of our student population and education in general and our teachers and staff. So I do appreciate you and team, understanding that and ensuring that, our benefits to our associates are certainly always relevant, to those factors as well.
Right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Underhill?
Yeah, so I had one question about, I know we've reviewed the updated teacher evaluation tool. I was just wondering, is the administration evaluation tool the same that's still on the portal that was used like last year?
Yes, ma'am. There were no changes to the administrator evaluation tool.
So the question I have, and it's kind of related to the feedback that you had, is just about how I understand that 10% of the administrator evaluation is based on school-wide data. That's correct, or of their classification?
Yes, ma'am. As their final evaluation outcome, I believe 10% is either classroom or site-specific data, and then I believe it's 30% that is tied to their school-wide goal that they create.
Okay. So I was just wondering, and it's kind of along the same lines that you've already mentioned, but, for administrators, do we make allowances for the portion of the performance pay calculation that is based on school-wide data if they are at a Title I school or a school with significant special needs? And I don't know if we are doing that now or if that's something that you're just talking, that's come up in the discussion or not.
I don't believe that has been in part of our current system, Ms. Underhill, so that's a great recommendation, something for us to consider as we move that process forward this spring.
Okay, that's great. And then the other thought was just, and you kind of again, mentioned this in your comments, but we have the ability to utilize performance pay in different incentive models, et cetera. Is that correct?
Certainly, the model that Peoria has, like I shared, was created many years ago, so depending upon the conversation, I do think we have to keep within the confines of the law.
Right.
In particular for that piece of performance pay, the classroom site fund, but as I shared, we are using some additional resources to support other employee groups to where if certain requirements were asked of, we could modify our plans in many different ways.
That's great. All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Pingerelli?
Well, Dr. Davidson, we're here another year on this topic. We had talked about this October 25th, 2018, and I explained my kind of dismay a little bit about this particular way of doing performance pay. I just want to go through the breakdown of it again. So 33% is performance classification. For highly effective and effective, they get 100% of that 33%.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if I remember a past board meeting, 99.6% of the teachers fall within highly effective or effective.
Using the old evaluation document or observation tool, Ms. Pingerelli, that is correct. We don't know yet. The desire and hope would be that we might see some change with our newer tool focused more on instruction, but certainly you are correct with that data.
Okay. And the second part is 50% is district graduation rate. The individual will get 100% of that if the graduation rate is 90%. And from our conversation in the past, we have never fallen below 90%. So that 50% is given. The only thing that there's a little, I guess, more of what we really need is the student learning objective, and that's 17%. And they will get 100% if they score a 3 or 4. I know last year I was going through the minutes, and you had explained that this plan was teacher-friendly. I think that, I've been told that I'm political, and I know a lot of teachers that are completely opposite of where I stand, but they're fantastic teachers. And I would love to see those teachers and staff get more, and teachers that are not doing as well not get as much. That would incentivize people to actually put in 100%. So I would like to, I'm going to vote no on this year. I'm going to make a stand. I think it really needs to have a change. I really want to put the money towards people that are highly effective in showing it. And what's highly effective is academics for me. So that's where I stand. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And Ms. Pingerelli, if I might add, just please note that type of conversation is certainly what we're going to be bringing to our committees to really have a look at and to examine where those percentages fall and where should that money go. So thank you.
I know, yeah, but if we approve this tonight, then it's another year down the road.
The information I'd bring back correct would be for the next school year. Tonight's, for me anyway, was more of the logistics or mechanics behind performance pay, simply because I can't bring anything to you until I get the approval rating from our current staff. But yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Davidson, for continuing to bring this forward. As Ms. Pingerelli mentioned, we have been talking about this conversation for over a year, and I've had an opportunity to meet with you and some of your staff, as well as many teachers and administrators, about what we are holding ourselves accountable for, and that seems to be the theme as we continue to move forward, is accountability, and then as a result, how are we compensated for holding ourselves accountable, and that's where it lies in that conversation. You have brought forward, at least to me, and I believe in one of the past presentations, a phasing of evaluating the tools and how does that align to moving the dial where the results align to the evaluation tool. Do you recall, or can you recap where we're at on the teacher evaluation tool and that phasing? And then I want to transition to the administration, where we're at in that evaluation tool.
Sure. President Sam Martinez, members of the board, Ms. Powell Thompson. Right now, we're currently utilizing that observation tool on behalf of our teaching staff that you approved for us. So our administrative team is working hard alongside our teachers and our instructional coaches, our curriculum and instruction team, to implement that, see how it's going. Our observation capture tool, our data capture tool is in place, so we're capturing that data on what we're seeing in our classrooms. So that really was phase one, just giving us that opportunity to begin utilizing that process. A committee will be created again for that group as well, to revisit how things are going, what's some feedback from our administrative team, what are our teachers saying, what does it look like. So as we move into it, I would say phase two is even tonight's policy GCO plays into that. We'll be examining in the springtime, in this late fall, the tool, what does our policies say, and our performance pay plans. And as you know, right now, all of our certified educators are eligible for performance pay. The plan they use is really the same. We haven't varied those performance pay plans by educator group. That might come into a conversation that certainly I'd bring to you in the spring, but I think the certified observation tool is moving a little bit quicker because we started a new one. The others aren't going to be even examined until this fall and spring.
Thank you, and that highlights to the points of Ms. Underhill of equity and Mr. Sandoval is making sure all classifications are being evaluated and that we're compensating. This is not a one board term process and is one and done and fixed. It's definitely not a one school year. It's a phase, and I encourage everybody, as you heard tonight, staff, not everybody's responding to the surveys, and that is detrimental to the feedback and the progress that we make as a district. If you don't provide feedback, we can't make changes based on those answers. So please, I would like to see going forward and surveys go out to our employees, 100% response rate. Best practice in the private industry is above 90%. So continue to do that, as well as you look at administration feedback. I would encourage getting that communicated as to phasing, where we're at on that. Town halls, going to school site, where we're at, and engaging in conversation to move the dial so that we can have those results match compensation and vice versa. At this point, this is a process. I appreciate the recommendation, and governing board members, are there any questions, more questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Ms. Linda Powell Thompson, anything else to add?
I believe that you've really covered it. We are looking, and as we continue to meet and solidify the strategic plan and really understand what student success means, then we have the ability to really do what is being asked for, and which is to make sure that we're giving our performance pay to people who are actually performing. Mm-hmm. It does seem to be a kind of a tilt when there is our scores are not what we want them to be, and yet our scores with our teachers are pretty high. So if we and our administrators and council, so if we can just firm that up, first we have to see what does student success actually mean, how are we evaluating it, and then sticking to the policy and the law, mm-hmm. so that we're doing that. So yeah, I'm comfortable.
Mr. Sandoval.
Yeah, no, and thank you for that. I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. And again, I think we've all said it. This is a process or a system, right, that will continuously evolve, based on, again, how the district shifts. But there are so many dynamics even today. We talk about, our teachers' classrooms, ELL students, and students on IEPs. I mean, there are so many dynamics that goes into what a classroom looks like and how we evaluate that, right? So I think as we take a look at this plan as it is, and you tell me, it seems to be, I guess, the most equitable and addressing a lot of those other considerations at this point, until we further define student success and really implement and look at, all those dynamics that we've all talked about.
I would think equity, Mr. Sandoval, would be a part of that, but I also would say that it certainly is not punitive for those employees that are working in maybe some of our more challenging classrooms.
Yeah.
I'd like to highlight that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I do need a motion.
I move that we approve the Peoria Unified School District Performance Pay System.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Sandoval and a second by Ms. Underhill. Motion passes 3-1 and 1 absent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davidson. Moving on to 10.3, Statement of Charges for Termination for Teacher Patricia Richardson.
I move that we accept the statement of, where did it go? The statement of charges of termination for teacher Patricia Richardson.
I second that. Motion passes unanimously with 1 absent. 10.4, first read of policy section GCQE. Dr. Davidson.
Thank you, President Sejo Martinez, members of the board. Mr. Sandoval, this is not the GCQC we also often talk about.
Coming back.
I wanted to bring this first read as an opportunity for conversation, if you so wish, on our policy of retirement of professional staff members. And this particular update to policy is really to ensure that our policy and practice are aligned. I know we spent some time talking about that. And so when you see the language that was updated throughout this policy, it was to highlight that those employees who are eligible for our retiree benefits, that actually they receive that reimbursement once they register for employee health insurance benefits through the Arizona State Retirement System. And that's been a practice here for many, many years, but I certainly just wanted to make certain that our policy highlighted that. So that's why I was bringing that to you tonight as a first read, and certainly will stand for any questions you may have.
Governing Board, any questions or comments? None at this time. Dr. Davidson.
Thank you.
And again, that is first read. Moving on to 10.5, first read of policy section GCO.
Thank you, President Sejo Martinez, members of the board. Ms. Palace Thompson, GCO is one that is new based on Arizona School Boards Association's recommendations, as well as based on changes to Senate Bill 1071, which is the teacher and principal evaluation. There was some additional language that was added, and you can see that here, the changes that were recommended. The beauty to this policy, in particular the large section that was added on principal evaluation, we have been doing that for the last many years. That's been a part of our evaluation system. So I feel very comfortable bringing that to you this evening. The thing I would highlight on the evaluation of principals is that they share that the quantitative data on academic progress for needs to account between 20% to 33% of our evaluation outcomes. And as we talked earlier, once you bring in the student learning objective as well as the data that's available, that's roughly 40%. So we will have to adjust our percentages a little bit in the evaluation process to ensure we meet the demands of the law, but that's something we can easily do as we move forward. Again, I feel very comfortable in what this policy is asking us to do. It will be one that will be reviewed as part of our ongoing committee work, just because it does impact some things on how staffing may be done based on classification labels, and those are some things we haven't done here in Peoria, but certainly we'll want to open that up for conversation. But I stand here for any questions you may have.
Ms. Underhill?
So this is basically kind of a working document at the moment, and the committee will help finalize it? Is that?
With your approval of on behalf of our first read tonight, or once it's approved and consent, it'll actually be a document that's in our policy manual that says this is what we do. But there are some things in there that the board has flexibility on, such as how many evaluations should a person get if they've been highly effective or effective for a period of time. There's just some things that Peoria hasn't addressed in the past, and I believe we'll be looking at that here as we move into that committee work.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any additional questions, comments? Okay, again, these are first reads, community and staff. Anytime you see first reads, generally they follow up on the next board meeting in consent agenda items. So unless somebody sends us an email or shows up to speak to that item, they will not be pulled. They will be put in a consent agenda item, and we'll vote on it holistically. Thank you very much, Dr. Davidson, for that information. Moving on to informational reports. 11.1, Budget, Facilities, Planning, and Construction Report. Ms. Myers.
Thank you, President Ceja Martinez, members of the Governing Board. Each board meeting we do have under our informational section a budget and facilities report. We typically don't have a formal presentation or overview, but it is certainly available for our community to review, and it highlights purchase orders and expenditures related to our current bond program, as well as RFP renewals and related activities.
Thank you very much. And just to highlight, earlier today, you did present on our bond, so they can revisit the same board meeting.
Yes, thank you. And so once a year we do our formal update, and then every board meeting our community is certainly able to review activity on a biweekly basis.
Perfect. Moving forward, 11.2, District Enrollment Report for the month of September 2019, also viewable online, and any past enrollment data. 11.3, District Budget Report on the month of July of 2019, also viewable online. 11.4, Report on upcoming meetings and events. Ms. Airy.
Good evening, President Ceja Martinez, members of the board. Just a quick note for our community, as we have up on the screen in front of you this evening, that November 5th is Election Day. The Peoria Unified School District does have an all mail-in only election that is taking place. We would like to remind our community, as we have taken a number of calls from community members, where they can go for additional information. If they have any concerns about their ballot, they can visit Maricopa County's Election Services Department to inquire there. Also, we'd like them to know that Centennial High School is set up as an alternate location that will be staffed with officials from the county that can assist them as a drop-off place for their ballot, or should they have any concerns over a spoiled ballot and need some reprinting support. So do want to remind our community that that is fast approaching.
And please, can you remind us what day we must turn them in by?
President Ceja Martinez, members of the board, we are reminding everyone to place their ballot in the mail so that it may be counted by November 1st.
Thank you very much. November 7th, Governing Board, we do have a study session. We will convene regular board meeting at 6 o'clock. Our wonderful board clerk will start us off. I will be in transit as soon as possible, and then shortly after we'll follow the study session. We have our Love Our Schools Day, and fall break is just around the corner. Number 12.1, board member opportunity to readdress any other agenda items. 12.2, draft agenda for the November 7th. It's a work in progress. It'll be polished soon enough. 12.3, request for agenda items for future governing board members. If you have the items, you could see both pre and post. Governing board, is there anything you would like to add, Ms. Underhill? Ms. Pingrelli? Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, I would, trying to figure out how to position this, but what I'd like to understand or really talk about is a process of renaming the DAC. You know, when we take a look at, you know, our strategic plan and we look at, you know, leading with others in mind and, you know, and enriching the lives of our students, teachers, and staff on a daily basis, I don't know that district administration center aligns with that mindset and that culture that we're moving forward with. So I'd like to just take a look at the process and just explore, you know, how we do that.
So are you okay to get an informational report sent to the board with if there's any policy and then to discuss it if need be, or you want a full-on board discussion?
No, I mean, if there's something in policy that's in and around, you know, how the DAC gets named or renamed, sure, let's, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start off with a board report on policies or processes, and then we can go from there.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll second that. Any additional items? I do not either. Okay. 13.1, adjournment. I move that we adjourn the meeting at 7:22. Second. We have a motion and a second by Mr. Sandoval. We'll go ahead and do a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 7:22. Look at that.